always grabbing headlines is Donald Trump. And despite his promises to end wars, the person is asking, he's orchestrating many of the world's struggles. What is the impact on the dollar and equity markets, in your view?
Where do you start with this one? I think it's going to be a very long-term impact. So I think any things that we're seeing right now are probably only kind of the tip of the iceberg. One thing that I noticed recently, just over the weekend actually, is I saw a report that's indicated that the balance sheets, the reserves of central banks globally of gold have just exceeded the total amount of reserves held in treasuries for the first time, or the first time in a very long time at least. So central banks are acting in a way that says we do not trust the dollar, we do not trust the United States, and we want to diversify, we want to hold more gold. And the reason that gold has doubled over the past 12 months is predominantly because of that, because of central bank buying. So I think we're going to see a lot, and we've heard Mike Carney's speech at the World Economic Forum last week, which I think is an excellent summary of where we are in this world. And I think this is just the beginning, unfortunately. I think there are going to be long-term ramifications that have yet to be seen.
Well, I mean, let's just have a quick counterpoint to that we have the midterms coming up, which could effectively turn Trump into a lame duck president. And, you know, yes, there are some long-term ramifications, but these could be, you know, a lot of the things he's done could be undone, you know, in the not too distant future, you know, over the next few years. And, you know, the thing is, you know, the American economy has proved so resilient for so long that, you know, I don't want to completely bet against it. I don't want to be overweight it, and I probably don't want to have market weight given how extreme the allocation the MSCI world has to the US. But it's still an amazing economy, and a lot of the businesses there will not just survive, but continue to thrive despite whatever he does.
Yeah, I agree with you, Aubrey, on that point. I think when it comes to a lot of these businesses, I think they'll be fine for a while. My worry isn't next year or next 3 or 5 years for that matter. I think when I'm talking about kind of long-term ramifications, I'm thinking more about 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I think over the long term, we will look back at this moment, and I think they're going to be in the same way that the arc of history takes a very long time, and that doesn't the small changes in the arc of history only shows up in hindsight because of that. I think this moment will probably be one of them when we look back. But like you said, if things get reversed very quickly, then I think maybe this turns out to be a blip in the longer term arc, as have been many. America has had many of these crazy situations in the past. It's not the first time, and some of them were actually worse than this one. So maybe this is just a blip, and things will go back to their long-term trajectory. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, and I suppose a question that follows straight on from there is, do you agree that China has shown more resilience in facing US trade wars than many had thought it could?
Yes, definitely. I remember reading about this in 2018 during the first Trump presidency. Xi Jinping kind of put together a task force that said, how can we become more resilient and independent from the United States? And 10 years later, China was prepared when this happened. So I think there are many things that are negative about the Chinese system, politically and economically. But one thing that is certainly clear, that is positive, and that is unfortunately has been missing in the West in more recent history, is that the Chinese have been able and still do think long term. Instead of thinking just what's going to happen in the next 3 months or 6 months. So China has been preparing for this moment, and what we saw in terms of how resilient they are is not an accident.
I mean, I think the only thing to add to that is that the other factor is that a Chinese political system has a much greater ability to withstand pain than a US system.
That's for sure.
Democracy, does not lend itself to being able to withstand pain very well.